September 21st in mid-afternoon, this tropical terror struck, swept over outer Long Island, swept into thickly settled, highly developed New England.
The Great Hurricane of 1938, or the Great New England Hurricane, the Yankee Clipper, the Long Island Express. It went by a lot of names. To this day, 1938 remains the granddaddy of hurricanes to hit the Northeast, with 120-mile-an-hour winds.
With communication cut off, the full extent of the disaster was unknown for days.
More than 600 people died. An estimated 2 billion trees were destroyed in New York and New England. According to national hurricane statistics, the damage would run more than $6 billion today. It rearranged the geography of Long Island. This, the Shinnecock Inlet, didn't exist before the storm. How many of you have even heard of the 1938 hurricane before now? Even among people right in Irene's path, there seems to be a collective amnesia over the fact that whopper killer hurricanes can and do hit the Northeast, with devastating consequences.
In terms of the entire Northeast, we probably get one every decade or 15 years. The intense ones are more rare, where they're only occurring every several decades or even every century.
Jeff Donnelly studies hurricanes at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution on Cape Cod.
There's this whole series of examples from the historic record of intense hurricane strikes hitting New England. The first one occurred in 1635, just a few years after European settlement of the region. We happen to know a fair amount about it because the storm passed between Plymouth and Boston, the only two places we had permanent European settlements.
New York's Kennedy Airport was shut down by midday yesterday as Irene approached. In 1821, what is believed to be a Category 3 storm passed right over this spot. The storm surge in Manhattan was as high as 15 feet. 30-foot waves reportedly washed over New York City in August 1893. The New York Times wrote that in Central Park, more than 100 noble trees were torn up by the roots, and branches were twisted off everywhere.
We expect a much higher level of storm surge.
The tracking of the storm continues to be very ominous for us.
If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, it can be fatal.
East Coast residents have been bombarded with information about Irene for days, but imagine no warning whatsoever. Silence until wham, the storm hits. That's what happened in 1938. It wasn't until 1954 that the National Hurricane Center put out forecasts even 24 hours in advance. That was the year that Hurricane Carol walloped New England, especially Rhode Island. The hurricane took out the steeple of the Old North Church in Boston. Yes, the church made famous by Paul Revere's ride. The damage from Carol would run more than $4 billion today. Even a guess about the impact of Irene on New York and New England would suggest staggering sums of money.
It's hard to imagine not having a $1 billion storm that makes a direct impact on the major metropolitan area of the Northeast.
Bill Reed is director of the National Hurricane Center.
Wind damage tends to cause the most dollar damage because it affects areas all the way inland, not just at the coast. The storm surge flooding is right along the immediate coast, and the beach erosion and the wave action there can do the most dramatic damage, wipes out the whole property.
And that's where amnesia comes in. Once Irene is forgotten a decade or two down the road, count on it. The Northeast will be surprised all over again that multi-billion-dollar storms do happen here.